Hello and welcome. So today I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend, Dr. Hilary Cauthen, who's going to chat with me about imposter syndrome as part of this year's International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day. And really, what we just want to explore our experiences of it and anything that we've learned that works for us, albeit we recognize that what works for one person doesn't always work for somebody else. So Dr. Hilary, thank you so very much for coming on and sharing this space with me, because I think imposter syndrome is one of those things that creeps upon us all at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we would be ignorant to say that we've never experienced it, right? Like it definitely shows up even at the smallest level. There's that hint of self-doubt before you go on and kind of complete a task. So I'm so excited to just chat with you again and share this space and kind of tips we've learned.
Oh, I love that. Because, yeah, I mean, there's definitely been moments where it's more than crept in to my life. In fact, sometimes I think it directed my life for a large period. And I remember at one point feeling almost like I was constantly having two conversations, the one inside my head and the one that was trying to come out that hopefully didn't sound anything like the one that was going on inside. Because I was in those throes of feeling like I was a fraud, feeling like I shouldn't be where I was, and hoping that that didn't come out of my mouth while I was still pretending that I really should be there and I really was capable of running those organizations or running those teams. Has that been anything you've ever experienced?
You know, it's funny. And even as, we were prepping for this talk, I was thinking, goodness, is the reason why I'm constantly striving for things is to quiet this voice or to prove something or to finally feel enough. Like I've had plenty of people ask me like, hey, when are you going to be satisfied? When is it enough? And I'm like, that's a great question, And so I was like exploring my own current behaviors, but there's definitely been pivotal moments before really big things that we're going to highlight and be a vulnerable place for me to own a space. Like before my TEDx talk, I'm like, is this going to land? Am I the credible voice for this? Like what's going to happen when I do this? Even after writing a book, being an author, it was kind of this imposter syndrome of like, oh, I'm an author. It's like, well, you wrote a book, like it's already out there. But even after the fact, these feelings arose of like, well, what does that mean now? And the doubt of the perception of what's going to happen from there and how it's going to be received. And so it's always at those pivotal moments that make me have a little bit of doubt and look for, okay, how am I going to feel secure now? How am I going to know that I've like made it,
Oh, that so resonates. I mean, I remember I'd made, when I did my TEDx, I made it so much bigger in my head, I think. And therefore I was so afraid that I was going to fail dismally. And then even when I'd done it, even after the speech gone through, I still managed to like spiral into the whole, well, maybe it wasn't good enough, maybe it wouldn't resonate with anybody, maybe it would maybe I just looked like some overindulgent woman that wanted to share her story and nobody else really cared. I think we do, don't we? We kind of like, doesn't matter what external validation we get, the internal voice that's telling us that we don't deserve it or we're not enough or it could get taken away or that it could be an opportunity to be judged.
Yes.
And yet, for me, it's always been one of those really interesting things that goes, I used to tell myself it for years, well, somebody's going to think this or think that or think the other or think all these awful things, that the reality was I was the one thinking those.
Yeah.
Nobody else had thought them, or they might have, but nobody else had said them. And actually, when I asked people what they thought, they had really nice things to say. So it's like, how lovely of you to say such nice things. Because in my head, I've spent all these years telling myself that you thought this.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, do you ever do the same, where you almost distance yourself from your own thinking by telling yourself it's what other people are going to think? Other people are going to think these things, and actually we're thinking them.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, and partly maybe it's because we're women and in the roles that we're in, but I feel like there's a sense of protective armor that I've constantly put upon myself in preparation to deflect these future potential stereotypes and critics that I've been told will exist. You work in a male dominated world, you're a leader, and oh, because you're assertive, maybe that means you're bossy, or other derogatory terms of nature that we know exist. And, you can't be this way and don't look this way. And so I've heard these external factors of how to be. And that leads to, when you're a high achiever, and especially when imposter syndrome created looking at high achieving women, it was this self-doubt and self-critic came in because of these evaluation factors and these fear of evaluation. And so I feel like I've already tried to prepare myself, like, I'm going to deflect that. I'm going to prepare that. I'm going to think this. And any moment, micro moment where I'm like over analyzing a comment I had made or a presentation, all those, like, the armor crashes and I'm like, yep, I did all those things. And, it's silly because when you step back and reflect, oftentimes those voices aren't there, right? People aren't feeling those things. And it is this internal script that we have created, in a sense, either to protect ourselves or to work through things, or to not allow ourselves to feel successful at that level.
Oh, that so resonates, because I think, we have that script, don't we? And we, particularly, as you say, in very male dominated industries, there's the stereotypes you desperately try not to fall into, so that you can't be seen to be too female, you can't, but then equally you can't be seen to be trying to be too male, because then actually you're just aggressive, and so you kind of like you don't really have anywhere to fit, do you? I can't be this, but I don't want to be that. So actually, I'm just going to drift here in the middle.
Yep.
Trying to find my own identity and be comfortable that actually that's okay. That it's okay to turn up and be me. I remember at the first time I ever sat on a board, almost there was an element of, I've got one of these at home, I must compliment her on a dress, and I'm like, I didn't get here because I dress well. It's like, I got it because I worked really hard. Right. To get here, but it was almost that not only did I feel awkward and not really know where my place was, it felt like everybody else in the room felt a bit awkward, didn't really know how to respond or how to deal with you either, which just turned the volume up on that inner voice. And I loved what you said about the fact that sometimes that armor cracks. I sometimes think with my inner voice, it's like a carnivorous rat. The minute it finds a chink in the armor, it's in there, and it's like, there's a way back in, and I can be heard now, and I can probably get her to take a step back. And although it is trying to keep me safe, the reality is it's doing anything but keep me safe, isn't it?
Yeah. And even listening to the comment on the dress and things, one thing that I never thought of until this moment, but being a mom of 4 children and being an entrepreneur and a business owner and in leadership spaces and kind of having that ownership, that was a very difficult transition. And I know a lot of, women in this workspace and leadership realms really explore, like, do I become a mom? When do I become a mom? And there is this weird imposter syndrome balance of like, I can be a mom and I can be a boss. Not one is better or more or worse, but there's all this judgment of like, you're not mom enough if you're working and you're the time off and all the things of mom shame that exist. But that was for sure this moment of like, am I getting this right? Like, how can I be both things? Like, how does this work? And that really showed up in multiple ways as being a parent and a leader in the space I work in.
I love that. That so resonates. I mean, I only have one child, but it really did hit. It was like, and then I started telling myself, I had my little girl late in life, so then that wasn't good enough either. It's like, well, I'm too old to be a mum, really. So I'm not getting it right, and I'm too old, and I'm probably not doing very well as an entrepreneur because I'm supposed to be being a mum, and then I'm not being a very good mum because I'm over here doing work. And it strikes me as really strange, because I have got a little girl, and I constantly try and think about what it is I'm saying so that I don't help her create the same script I created, so that it doesn't have that that thing that when I was growing up, you took the label. If you did something naughty, you were naughty. If you did something good, you were good. Whereas the reality is, you are you, and you make good choices and you make poor choices, and they're choices. So you get a poor one, you can make a better one. You make a good one, you can make it again. But we don't need the label. And yet, I certainly grew up, everything was labeled. Everything had its box, and you had to perform within that box. It was like, that's where safe was, wasn't it? Safe was, I know what the label is. I know where I know where I'm going. And actually, when I got into my 40s and started to rip up the labels and create ones that better served me, that was a really tough step, because it was like giving up on but when I say safety mechanism, it doesn't sound very safe, because it wasn't very kind. That were doing me any justice, but it was what I knew, and therefore it was safe because it was comfortable. Does that resonate with what you've gone through?
Absolutely. And, I think we both take the same thing of like, let's make our kids be better and do things, in a different light. And I have a 13-year-old, and it reminded me just recently, we're going through this phase. She's a high achiever, driven, naturally as a firstborn, orderly, she's very successful naturally at the things she does, but she has intent to be really good too. And I was in her room, and she knows I can read her phone or her whatever whenever I need to, because I'm a mom. But I was a little cheeky. I was reading her journal. I was like, well, let me just look in here and be a mom, make sure she's good. And there was a comment that stood out to me. It said, my mom said she was proud of me, but I don't believe her. And it struck a chord. And then I wrote in there and I said, I am always proud of you. You are the most important thing in my world. I love you no matter what, good or bad. You are a beautiful human being. And yes, I read your journal. Love you, mom. Just shut it. But it made me think, I see these things. I see these perfectionist qualities in her, and I see the drive, the desire. And we had a beautiful conversation when she was going to sleep. And I said, you don't have to be anything but you. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to be amazing. You got this big soccer game tomorrow. That's all for you. If you want to go be great, awesome. I'm going to cheer you on. But don't do it to prove to mom and dad that we expect this of you. This is fun. The things you're doing are supposed to be fun. And then we had the chat, because friends were pretty hard at the middle school age. And I said, girlfriend, you are successful. You're really good at things. And I want your light to shine. I want it to be so bright that you can just shine through the world about how amazing you are. I said, but you will have people who want to dim that light, who get threatened by that light or are envious that you're so good. I said, do not let them do that. We weren't taught to own our success. We weren't taught to shine. I said, please go shine as bright as you can. And so this is a way of me trying to limit the self-critic, the self-doubt, the perfectionism, the imposter syndrome, because I want her to shine. I want her to know it is okay to be I am really great at this. And I work really hard to do that.
I love that, because it's so true. I say, and I love that you said to shine your light, because I say that to Scarlett all of the time. It's all of us are here to shine our light on the world, whatever that light is, however that's supposed to be, and that isn't something that was celebrated when I was young, but it absolutely should be celebrated, and we shouldn't need to fit in. But we feel the need to tweak parts of our personality, or play a little bit smaller, or not step into that light. And I can't remember whose book it was, but so I have to find out. But somebody suggested it's not actually our light that it's not actually our darkness that scares us. It's our light. Yes. It's the fact that we might actually be really good at something, and that feels a bit ego, and we've been told ego's wrong. Too much of anything is wrong. But in the right balance is actually healthy, isn't it? It allows us to be ourselves, to step in and do the thing that we're here to do, that we can add value with.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a funny thing of me trying to recreate a script for her that's different. And I try to model that now. And I think there is an evolution, and maybe you've experienced this too, but there is an evolution in women, and for me, of owning who I am. And it does hit a certain mark of, probably around 35 to 40, where I was like, no, I'm good with who I am. And I'm confident, and I'm calm, and I'm excited, and I can't wait to keep growing and learning and aspiring to be better. But there is a sense of I'm not chasing anymore, and I'm very comfortable with growth, and I have humility, but there's a confidence, and it feels easier to be in that space as I've progressed into my age.
Oh, that definitely resonates. So as I've got older, I've got, I guess more comfortable with who I am, and I'm happy with that. You know, I used to panic that I wasn't, I didn't look young enough, I wasn't fit enough, I wasn't attractive enough, and it's like nobody cares. Literally nobody cares, Kim. Nobody. And once you get to that point, it's like because none of that matters. It's who you are and what you bring, and the rest of it. Yeah, I spent so long worrying about what other people thought of me until I realised that I don't spend very much any time worrying about thinking negative things about other people. I'm too filling that space thinking negative things about myself. You know, there's no space in there for me to anybody else because I'm too busy filling it with thinking horrible things about myself and then pretending other people feel the same. And so I thought, well, hold on, why do I think I'm so different from everybody else? And actually, when I chat to my friends, they have some of the same fears and insecurities and some different fears and insecurities that I do. So they're filling their time with their fears and insecurities about themselves. They're not filling their time with their fears and insecurities about other people. And I was like, so nobody really is worrying about anybody else.
No, we're so selfish. We just think about ourselves. You know, you made a comment, and I think my fear now, and it has been when it shows up, is this fear of aging out, right? In a sense of, am I going to age out of my job? And when I talk about this to my husband, he just laughs and is like, that's so silly. Why would you ever age out? And I'm like, I work with like high school and collegiate and like elite athletes, and you know, are they going to want to come talk to like a 70-year-old? Like I can't imagine myself retiring, right? So I'm thinking, am I going to be relatable to these like young kids when I'm 70? And you know, as my prescribed script is like the silver fox, the men age well and they're always wiser and handsome, and the women's kind of lose their beautiful appeal as we get older, apparently. And I'm like, goodness, like who's going to want to come talk to me? And he's like, you're still going to be good at what you do. Of course they're going to want to come talk to you. But I've had this thought of like, when will I not be it and in?
That's it. So resonates because you're right. You know, we do have men age so gracefully, and women we tend not to, or less so. But it doesn't change who we are and what we bring.
Right.
We're still almost putting it into that package and saying, well, it will only work. Oh, look, the dog's joining in. Just to add to my imposter.
Mine was scratching at the door, so I was like, I'm going to ignore that.
It's like, what? But you kind of look at it and go, it doesn't change who I am. I mean, I decided to go grey 2 years ago. And it's amazing how many people have had a comment about it. Because I'm like, does it really matter? It's like, this just is how my hair is.
Right.
I remember somebody saying to me, but I don't understand why you've done that, Kim. You've got a young face. Well, my face hasn't changed.
Well, gray was very in like a few years ago anyway. So you could just think, I'm just going with the style.
I was just late to the party.
I think it's going to come back now. If anyone watches the show Severance, right? Like they have, like Cobell has all the gray hair, so maybe it's going to be back in again.
Making its comeback. I was late to the party, and I'm now trying to be ahead of the retro rebate. But you kind of look at it and go, actually, it was a great moment for me to realise that actually I don't change, so I'm still me, and the wisdom I have is still the wisdom I have, and my learned experiences and my lived experience is still my lived experience. And actually, that's going to be interesting to somebody who hasn't lived it yet but wants to.
Right.
Somebody who wants to do some of the things that you've been able to do. So you will remain relevant, and yet we start to kind of create new doubting scripts for ourselves, don't we? Just when we think we've got over the previous doubt. It's like, yay.
What anyone? Yes. Yeah. You know, but
yourself, so I'm just going to knock you down a peg.
Yeah, it is. You know, I am blessed. Like I used to, I always wanted 4 kids, right? And I was such an athlete now, and I was like, and I didn't have brothers, so I was like, I want to have boys. And I was blessed to have 4 beautiful girls. And when I look back at my life now and I think about it, I'm like, I for sure was like intended to have girls, and the lessons and the grounding space that they have helped me become more confident and calmer and think differently and help them, in different ways. And I'm like, yes, this is the best thing in the world that I could have, is to have these 4 girls to ground me and allow them to be different, because, I didn't always get it right and I didn't feel great about myself. And I want them to feel that way. I want them to feel okay to do that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I often say, I've learned so much more since being a mum, and it's like having my inner child running around outside.
Yes, I do see the good and bad things I'm like, oh, that's the not so great thing that we got to shape. It'll be great when you're 20. It's a little rough when you're 5.
Yeah, it's like, I always say to Scott, I don't want to quash who she is and the confidence she has in the world, but sometimes she takes sassy to a brand new level, and I'm like, really? Yeah. I don't want to quash that, but we could just dial it down a little bit until we're a little older.
Yes, agree.
That would be quite nice. But I think you learn so much as a parent. As much as you grow and you teach, you learn so much. And I've become a much nicer person, I think, since becoming because you constantly almost hear the impact of what you're about to say on you when you were a child, and go, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave that voice in your head, because it took me so many years to get that voice out of my head, or not even out, because it's still in there, but at least for it to be in the attic and to be locked away most of the time, until it finds that chink, doesn't it? Until it finds that opportunity to come back and go, hey, did you forget me? Because I'm still here. But I love that, actually, having 4 daughters, and I imagine they're all very different. That brings with it extra dimensions of being able to see how you as a person grow as much as how they grow, because they're all individuals as much as they are all your daughters. Would that be fair?
Yeah. And, the dynamics of having a successful older sister and setting the tone, and how to teach them not to compare in the social comparison, but we're naturally going to, and then others that are so wildly independent. And I want to increase that thrive of, yes, be independent, but when do you still need other people? And so it's, we have such an open dialogue and conversation, and because they also know the work that I do, I think it allows us to have even different dynamic conversations about achievement and success, and what do athletes go through, and these fear of failures and fear of evaluation, which stems so heavily in this imposter syndrome, that I'm able to do a lot more preventative work with them and natural dialogue. And I still see it show up. My kiddo today has a soccer game, and she's like, oh, I'm already nervous. And I'm like, yeah, of course you are. Take a deep breath, find your time. But right now you're going to go to school. And when you get on the field, we'll worry about that, and we'll work through that. And so we're able to have more open dialogues, I think, because I'm already ahead of it. But it doesn't make it go away. They still experience self-doubt. They still experience this comparison and the fear of evaluation and proving and being good enough. And I'm just hoping they're able to get through that a lot faster, because we have skills to kind of reframe our thinking better.
Well, you've got strategies for them, haven't you?
Yeah.
So when they're in that moment, because I think it'd probably be naive to think we could ever get away with never feeling those things, because nothing exists without its counterpart. So unless we feel fear, we can't feel hope, because we have to know one to know the other, almost. But it is those cases of how do you move forward positively. So I can feel it, but it doesn't floor me. Versus I'm kind of paralyzed in paralysis analysis of every scenario that could possibly go wrong. And I can't move forward because that's where I am, versus that ability to go, well, it's okay to feel this, and it's expected that I would feel this, but actually I can also feel that as well. And which one do I choose? Where am I going to put it? So I love that, actually, with the work that you're doing, not only does that help the athletes and the students and that you're working with, you're actually able to take those lessons and apply them to yourself and your family. Because we have to go through it too, don't we? We have those moments of really doubting ourselves, that maybe every other time apart from this one was just luck. This one could be the one where I get found out. This could be the one that really, really trips me up. So in those moments when you're inner critic is taking over. Have you got any tips you could share with us about how you quieten that voice and regain control?
Yeah. I always listen because I'm like, okay, my voice is trying to tell me something, and there's a message in there that I can get to. And maybe it is I'm identifying a fear and I can say, yes, I am afraid of failing, but imagine what it could be like if I was successful, right? And we don't train our brains to look towards the success. And I'm like, what would it be like if I was successful? What would that feel like? Okay, what do I have to do to get there? And the hardest part for me is like all of us high achievers and that fall into this category, when we fail, not saying we're a failure,
Yeah.
and so there's been the part of de-identifying the action and the outcome of things I'm going for as not changing me as who I am as a human and the worth that I have. So I do a lot of intention setting. I do a lot of self-checking where one of my biggest things is like at the end of the day, like reflecting, like, did I do enough today? Did I do enough today that allowed me? And we have this little phrase in our house that's like happy, healthy, and full of love. And so it's like,
Oh,
did I do anything that made me feel happy? Did I do anything that, made me feel healthy? And how did I feel loved today or give love? And so those are kind of my grounding pieces that are my core values that no matter the things that I'm doing, good or bad and outcome oriented or a little bit risky and are going to cause some self-doubt, I have to sit back and pause and be like, okay, but what is it that you're going for? What was your intentions? How did you get there? Did it hit or not? And have that reflecting moment. And I do a lot of just quiet meditation every day for at least 5 minutes to feel grounded. And I think that allows the clarity and creativity to come in to not immediately have the reaction to the self-doubt. And so, it's intentional work. It's very intentional work. And if you get caught up in the busyness and the outcomes, then you're not going to have time to actually self-reflect and reframe and come back to your grounding anchors. And so I would just, focus on what are my core values and grounding anchors, and then make meaning of the things that are happening.
Oh, I love that. I must admit, we're so similar. So, Scully and I do a little bit every tea time around what we're grateful for in today.
Oh, yes.
Things that, what are the things that filled our soul with joy? And it can be the tiniest moment, or it can be a big thing. But just being intentional, I think for me, that was the key bit that came out from what you were saying is it's being more present and more intentional. So I like you, when I find my inner voice saying something, I acknowledge it because there's something in there I need to listen to. But then it's a case of kind of reframe it. Is there any evidence I could get this right? Since there's evidence I could get it wrong. And for me, one of the things I then do is, I'm a proudly biased mother who believes that as long as she's kind and she tries hard, there's nothing she can't do. Right. So I will say to myself, if this was Scarlett, what advice would I give her? And then I make myself take that advice, because
I love it.
The advice you give to somebody you love, it must be good advice, because we don't set the people we love up for failure on purpose, do we?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It is in that intentional reframe, and I love that you shared that, having those moments of going inward, having that self-reflection, taking the time to step away from the chaos. Because I don't know about you, but I find when I'm in those moments where life has become a little bit more chaotic, or there is lots going on, and you're trying to balance the mum hat, the entrepreneur hat, the friend hat, all of the others, that can be the moment that little voice gets a little bit louder. And just taking a moment to be with myself, to be still, allows me to unravel the jumble of those thoughts. Does that resonate?
Absolutely. And, I think like this is a very busy week for me that's happening. And there's the thoughts of like, hope you're not there with your kids, right? Because I worked like 12 hours, then I went to go work out because that is important for me and my training. And then I get home at 9 and it's like, well, they're in bed. But I'm like, doesn't mean I'm a bad mom because I want to go work out. Like they're okay. It's 2 days this week that I didn't get to like spend a lot of time with them, but I have the weekend. So I have to pause and stop my brain and be like, no, you're doing what you need to do. This is just a busy week and this is a busy thing, but this is why you have a team and a family and everyone's helping. And every morning the kids are great and happy and we do our morning routine. So I'm like, okay, we're good. But I have to check myself because, it's easy for me to be like, you're not a good mom. You're not there for them. Why are you so busy? Why are you taking care of yourself and working out? And so those moments can be hard, right? When the busyness happens, to then be like, what are the most important values and how do you keep showing up? And I love the part where you were like, let me check the evidence. Cause that's definitely a go-to that I say is, what makes this thought true? What makes this true? Um, the other fun part that we've started doing, and I do this a lot with my clients, is kind of the wow moment, right? The win of the week. And so we look at, like, you can have a win of the day, but it's like, what's your win of the week? Let's have a wow moment. And that's always fun and catchy, where we get to celebrate the success and to reframe and teach people, like, yes, highlight your success, have a win. Like, let's share that. Let's make this really grand and big so people can learn to kind of enjoy those moments.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great thing to do, because we try and think about it. And Scarlett, bless her, she got learner of the week the other week from school. She was so proud. But then she came home, and the first thing she did was make 2 new certificates, one for me and one for the dog, so that we both got learner of the week as well. For I think mine was for believing in myself and going to talk at the school, and Pudding's was for being a really brave boy and going out to a new dog park. But I loved that her first thought was, I felt great about this, now I need to make them feel great as well, so that they feel included. And I was like, I love that whole taking those moments to celebrate, because I don't know about you, but I used to spend a long time really deep diving into anything that went wrong. But anything that went well would almost be get out of there as quickly as possible. People might think that I'm full of myself. So you'd run away. It's like, I remember being given an award once and immediately trying to hide it, because it's anybody else to think that I was too full of myself, or I thought better of myself than I should, until I realized that actually inadvertently what I'd done with that was make it look to the person who gave me the award like I didn't care. Because it could have looked like I was dismissing it as I didn't want it, rather than I was dismissing it because I didn't think I deserved it. Right. Which was a real shift for me in those parts, that's going, actually, maybe you need to borrow their belief. Maybe you need to borrow what they see, and then do your best not to mess it up, not to let them down.
Yeah, that's the imposter phenomenon, imposter syndrome, right? Is like, we dismiss and minimize the success, and we hyper focus on the things that didn't go good enough or could be lead to failure evaluation. That story made me think, just on Monday, my kiddo, we had spring break last week. And so we had a week off, and she was going back to school, and she's like, Mom, can I bring my medal? I had to earn this medal for a cheer competition. Can I bring this in and show it? And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, wasn't thinking the importance of it, but thank goodness I said yes, because she wants to show off her medal. She's so excited. And she's like, can I have a medal display in my classroom? And I'm like, I'm not in your classroom. I hope your teacher says yes. But if I had said no, it would have taken away that light for her and that importance. And it's these moments, like, I wasn't even thinking about it, but now I'm like, oh, be more mindful. Like, yes, go bring your medals, do what you want, show them to the world. Like, you should be so proud of yourself. But it's funny.
I love that, because I think sometimes we do, don't we? Life's busy, and we aren't always fully present in every moment, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think, again, they're the moments where we can berate ourselves for not having been fully aware in every minute. And it's like, we're human beings, like, we're perfectly imperfect, and that doesn't mean to say we don't strive to try and continue to grow and continue to develop, but we no longer need to berate ourselves for every little mistake we make, because every one of those is a learning, isn't it? It's an opportunity for growth. Right. We probably learn more from the things we got wrong than we do from the things we got right, don't we?
And it's funny, because when I hear us talking, and there's a shift of like owning your success and like striving for that, and minimizing the negative thinking, then it becomes like, where people are like, well, but if you failed, you failed. And like, where's the accountability? I'm like, well, you can still have accountability and learning in the failure. Like, that has to exist as well. Like, we can't just minimize we got stuff wrong. Like, there's twofold, but it doesn't have to dim the lights, like you're saying. But there's a part of, yes, be accountable, take action, move forward, but don't have it make you as a human feel less than, look at the actions of what we're doing.
Oh, I love that. I say to Scarlett all of the time, it's never, ever the mistake that defines you. It's what you do with the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's whether or not you take the lesson, you take the accountability, you apologize if you got it wrong, and you try and put it right. But that's not about you. That's how you are showing up in the world. But you are you, and this happens. So to your point, don't make it change who you are as a human being. And because as long as you are taking that accountability and doing something with it, that's all that can be expected of you.
Right.
Anything else that we can expect. Dr. Hillary, I always love chatting to you and could chat to you all day. I can't believe where time has flown.
I know.
Thank you so very much for coming on and sharing your experience. And I hope everybody listening and watching has found it as insightful and inspiring as I have. So thank you.